Hello, welcome to the Creators Guild podcast. I'm Chris Howell, and behind the scenes with me,
Jared Lovelady.
And we are here to talk about all things creative. And we have somebody else here with us today.
Hello, I'm Anja, Lovelady. Yes. I could not remember if you guys said your last names.
Yes, this is
my daughter.
Yeah.
Yes, Jared's daughter has elected to join us today because she's as crazy as we are.
Yeah, just maybe a little bit more. I reel it in around you guys.
Yeah. It runs in the family.
Yes, it does.
I haven't had any interest from any of my kids to come on and talk about anything with us whatsoever so far.
It's a good thing I like talking.
Cosette will.
Yes,
at some point. Cosette will probably, because she's trying to get a YouTube channel up and going with our cat Peaches.
Oh.
And she's trying to record Peaches and Friends.
Cute.
Where she records Peaches and her playing with Peaches and Peaches playing with the ferrets and pictures of Butterscotch as he lays on the floor and stretches, and some videos of Sky as she runs around away from people and growls at them and tries to scratch them. So sometimes she'll probably come on. I don't know if any of my other kids will join us ever or not.
You need to get Avonlea. She's creative.
Me? Wait.
Avonlea.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe sometime she might join us. I don't know. But yes, Anja is joining us today, and we're going to have a conversation about some random cool stuff with Anja.
Just about, I hope.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nope. But first, just a quick reminder. If you haven't gone and gotten a Flight from Shadows, go and do that. Go get a Flight from Shadows, because To Bind with Blood will be coming out soon. I'm still not going to tell you a date because we're still losers, and we still don't have a date set in stone yet, but we are closer. Every day we inch just a little bit closer.
If we can make the same progress we've made in the past 2 weeks, in the next 2 weeks.
2 weeks is too long. We have to make the progress we made in the past 2 weeks, like in the next 4 days.
Well, yeah, that's true, but...
Do you guys sell bookmarks still?
We give away bookmarks when we sell physical copies.
Okay.
Once we get the new website up and going, which that'll be coming. We're going to have a new website. We'll have some other merchandise and stuff on there.
Yeah, then get a physical copy, because the nicest bookmark I've ever owned. So
Yes. Have we shown the bookmarks
it's
ever?
a really
I don't
nice
know.
bookmark.
I don't know if you can see this or not on there, but
Yeah, you can
I think
see
we
it.
might have shown it one time. Oh, I'll stretch out
There
there.
you go.
Yeah, nice leather. We have leather and wood bookmarks that we go to cons and stuff with and give them away to people who buy physical copies directly from us.
Yep.
We've sold some bookmarks at cons
A
independently,
couple,
separately.
yeah, just a few.
But at some point, we'll get big enough, we'll sell a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And that'll be cool. So, more to come on the book. But Anja,
Yes,
you went to school to do some cool stuff, right?
I did.
What did you go to school for? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I went to... I'm not going to name the school. I don't want to dox myself. But I went to school for fine arts, and I currently have a bachelor's degree. I graduated in December with my bachelor's degree. I might sound like an 8-year-old. I am 23. I'm 23. I'm just 5'1", and I have the hand size of a 7-year-old. So I'm not a child, if that's what you were worried about. I am very much not a child. Yeah, so I went to school for fine arts, and my emphasis was technically in illustration, but I emphasized in entertainment. It was
Was it entertainment media, or is there a specific area within entertainment that you focused on?
Entertainment generally refers to like production, a lot of behind the scenes production.
Yeah.
So storyboarding, character design, prop design, and then just animation in general.
Yeah, I was going to say on the design
Yeah.
side, it's very much like you were hands-on. You were doing
Yeah.
the actual creative development. It's
Yes.
not, here's the theory behind
Well, we do that too.
I mean,
but
it's not all like here's the theory behind. You learn the principles of it, but
Yes.
then you actually do
yeah,
storyboarding. You create characters, you illustrate, and do all the
Yeah.
things like that, right?
yeah. So, I mostly focused on storyboards while I was there. I had a lot of portfolio classes, so you got to set up your own projects. You got to look for mentors, so like networking. And so most of my studies were in storyboarding. I did some character design. I've also I've done a little bit of comics, mostly web comics, and then whatever other electives I took at the same time.
Web comics is in Spider-Man shooting webs, or
No, web comics is in you read it on your phone, generally on an app or a website. It's formatted differently. It's not formatted like a graphic novel is like the ones you buy at Barnes and Noble, the ones you flip through.
how does it
Word.
flow? Web.
Right. It's generally up to down. You scroll.
Okay.
So it's
So like some of the I will call them like, I think I'm referring to them wrong, but it's like memes that tell a story in like 5 or 6
that would be considered
images
yeah.
that you scroll down through. Those are actually like a mini web novel
Technically,
web
web comic.
web comic.
Yeah, that's yeah. Those are web comics.
Nice. I learned something. I didn't know there was a web comic.
Now you do.
Now I know. And knowing is half the battle.
Yeah, most of those I don't I'm a Gen Z, so I know they're more millennial comics, but I don't know their names. But it's the ones you'd see on like Facebook or something. And it's generally 4 panels and it's usually relatable.
Yeah. Some kind of little
Those
4-panel thing.
are web comics. Or you can call them a web series. But they're technically web comics. But I did more of like a you probably haven't gone on Webtoons, have you?
I know Webtoons, but I don't remember where. I think I've seen, because Webtoons does. I think I'm thinking of Webtoons.
Probably they have tons of commercials all
Yeah.
the time. So
Okay, that's what it is.
that's typically what people think of when you say webcomics is Webtoons, or Tapas, or whatever comic website you want to use. Comic Fury, I think, is one of them. I'm probably saying that wrong. There's forums. It depends on what website you go on, but most of them are. Some of them are formatted like graphic novels, but most of them aren't. The more popular thing to do is just the scroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how big is from? I know we're kind of going down a specific path here, but
Yeah.
the webcomic world. How big is the webcomic world as far as? I mean, I know there's a bunch of stuff.
It's huge.
Stuff out there, but how big is it reality wise as far as like people creating and putting stuff out there on a daily basis? And I mean,
Yeah.
you did some of that in school.
Yeah.
So what does that lend itself to?
Like success wise, or
Yeah.
all art is really competitive. If you're on, generally, it's kind of like pitching a show.
Mhm.
But you pitch it to the owner of the website. It depends on the website, actually. So
Really?
webtoons you have to get approved. And I think I could be so wrong on this. This is just from creators I've supported. I think you have to come up with, if you want it monetized, you have to have a certain amount produced already to upload in advance. And that is only if they've greenlit it. Some people can get greenlit after if they're popular enough. But then you have websites like Tapas, and people can just donate. They can put their comics behind a paywall, and you can pay to read it. Or you can watch an ad or something. So success rate, though, it's just as competitive as getting a show lifted. Lifted? Well, that's not the right word.
picked up.
Picked up. Sorry.
So what about people that go out independently? Is it just a matter of like book-wise? We haven't done a lot of promoting either of our books or this podcast. Like, we want to get into that, but our promotion has been like nil.
Yeah.
It's just if we meet
It's
people
just
on
word
the
of
street
mouth, yeah.
and we
Yeah.
happen to have a conversation and they're like, "Oh, hey, you have books? You have a podcast? Yep. Oh, where can I get that? Go here." Like, that's it. That's the extent of of our reach.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of indie communities out there in the book world that promote each other, and even people independently just promote their books, whatever, and can be earn enough money to make a living if they promote it right. Is that something you can do from a web comic perspective?
Yeah.
Like, you just have your own site, your own comics, host it all yourself, do it all yourself, promote it yourself, and attract enough people to...
Yeah. So there was one thing you said that I was like, no, immediately. Your own website. Having your own website is good for a portfolio. It's good for getting a job. If you're promoting yourself, terrible. You have to go somewhere else. Because no one's gonna want to type in your website. They're gonna type in someone else's website. I was going somewhere with this. Right. So
I'm really good at derailing trains.
no, I'm just really good at forgetting what I was talking about. Yeah. So that's with anything though. That's like if you're selling stickers or if you're selling books or if you're selling, I mean, honestly, sometimes if you have getting ahead of myself. Excuse me. If you're selling patterns for people to crochet or sew with, or do it yourself DIY. Sorry, that took me a second. I was gonna say DIY. I'm like, that's not it. You generally will promote that you'll host that on someone else's website, like Etsy or something.
Yeah.
Just because domains are expensive and no one really knows you as a person. So, could you restate your question? I had an answer.
No, it's just about self promotion and becoming...
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Building a success just completely on
for
your
a
own.
living is pretty difficult. It's all about timing and how you promote yourself. So webcomics specifically, I've noticed that people will promote by doing little animated shorts, kind of like reels on Instagram or shorts on YouTube or TikTok. And it will generate intrigue in the characters. And then if they're interested enough because they find your characters relatable or funny or there's an interesting premise, they'll go to wherever you are. A lot of people use Patreon. I'd say that's the most success I've seen. Most people don't quit their day job, though. I've only ever seen one artist be able to fully support themselves on Patreon with webcomics. So, but that's from my experience. I've only done webcomics for fun, so, but that's also because I've tried to, it's just persistent effort. I did not have the time, so I'd release like one, and then people would be really interested in it. I'd generate a lot of intrigue, which was good, but then I didn't have the time to actually do it, so then my intrigue would fall off the face of the earth.
So the webcomics that you've done, what's the even just doing them for fun? Like, give us an idea of what is your what would your genre be? What would you focus on? What is your comic about?
The comics that I've tried doing are Pokemon Nuzlocke comics.
Pokemon what?
Pokemon Nuzlocke. A Nuzlocke is when you...
What's a Nuzlocke?
Yeah,
So somebody grabs your nose?
Yeah, no. It's named after... I don't remember. I'm a fake fan, guys. Nuzleaf, I think is what it's called. I'm gonna Google the Pokemon.
I was picturing like the dog that can't take its nose off of you.
What?
Nuzzles, like Nuzlocke.
Oh, I don't know why I looked that up on my phone. Hold on.
So
Yeah, Nuzleaf. Okay, so it's a Pokemon challenge where if your Pokemon faints, it dies. You're not allowed to revive it.
if it faints,
If it faints, it dies. You're not allowed to revive it, and you can only catch the first Pokemon in an area, and you have to nickname them so you're more attached.
do Pokemon faint frequently?
Yes, if you don't know how to play the game.
Don't know anything about Pokemon.
So,
just so you know.
yeah, so I won't go too into detail, but
No, that's okay. It's okay.
so basically, it's named the Nuzlocke was named after the person who first started it. Their Pokemon was a Nuzleaf, and I think Locke was their name. I'm such a big fan right now. But
your comic,
Yeah,
your
so
webcomics are based on.
artists started to they started taking notes on their Nuzlockes, and then they'd turn those into characters, and they'd make comics out of it. And those are pretty popular. There's tons of those out there.
Taking notes on their
Game.
the Pokemon. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so they'd take notes on what happened, how the battles went, who died, and then
turn that into a comic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a friend who's been doing theirs for about 3 years, and they're still going. I've done like 2 pages, and I've restarted like 3 times. I've since learned that I just do my own comics now for fun, mostly Baldur's Gate, because I'm that kind of person. I just do silly little comics on the side. They're more just like passion projects. It's just for fun. They're just for fun. But
so, well, Jared, you look like you were going to say something. We just keep rolling along here.
Right.
That's what you do for fun. What do you do semi-professionally?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I want to be a storyboard artist. I've done quite a bit of those. I've actually. Ooh, I hit the mic. That didn't do anything, did it?
No, it's
okay.
No, you're good.
I did it again.
That's okay. We don't. We had a couple of episodes where we kept having to say, "Chris, stop shaking the table."
Oh.
Because we had a creaky table and it would go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Anyways, so I do storyboards. I did some for one of my professors. I now have an IMDb. They did not credit me for storyboarding. They just gave me like an honorable mention. Like, thanks, guys.
What?
Yeah. But it was a fun side gig. I mean, it was just a short film. It was about 20 minutes long. I could be so dead wrong on that. But yeah, I did that for about 3 months. It was just a semester long. That's the only storyboard I've done professionally, but I've done we didn't really call it a thesis project. It's technically a thesis. I didn't go. My school was a little funky sometimes. But my thesis project was a 3-minute storyboard. And I did those about every semester. So every 3 months I'd do a new one. I generally do 2 or 3 that are about a minute long. So
Now, when you would do the storyboards, were they storyboards for like do a storyboard for something that's existing, do a storyboard for something that's new?
A bit
what
of
kind of
both.
mixture?
So, a bit of both. Generally, it was because I'd have to set up the project. It was whatever I could think of at the time. Some of them were my own ideas. They were my own pacing to my own. I'd have to find music to time to what I wanted, and that was original stuff, original properties, my stuff, my characters. But then I also would to do professional practice. I would take styles of other shows, and I would either design a character in that style, and I would storyboard to that, or I would. So if you. I'm a professional, guys. I know what I'm talking about. There's a reverse storyboard. That's what it's called. You take a show, or a movie or whatever you like, and you break down the shots, and that's more of a study. But I would do those as well.
Yeah.
Those technically weren't my projects. I'd do those on the side while doing the projects. But reverse storyboards are huge.
So with those, were they all like what you were doing? Were they all animated?
Yeah.
I mean, like the shows you were doing, the proposals you would put forth, they're all based on animated shows. It
Yeah.
wasn't storyboarding for like, here's an
Yeah.
animated storyboard for a
Live action.
non-animated show.
I've only storyboarded for live action once, and it was very different. That was the one the short film that I did.
Gotcha.
It was a lot different because I storyboard for cartoons, and that's a good question. I'm gonna go a little bit off the rails here, but it's the same topic.
We don't have any rails here.
Good. So a lot of people don't realize that there's different ways to storyboard. Every storyboard artist has a different. Each show you see only has about 3 max storyboard artists. If they have any more than 3, either it was a really big project or it's a really bad project. And that's just because it's inconsistent. So they'll stick to no more than 3 storyboards with maybe storyboard artists with a few revisionists. I don't think I've seen more than 5 on major professional projects.
What's the limiting factor for 3? Like, why you said if there's
consistency.
more than 3,
So
it's either a bad project or a really big project.
Yeah.
Why is 3 the magic number?
3 is the magic number because
I mean,
generally,
besides Schoolhouse Rock told us that it is.
Yeah, so in a season there will be anywhere from 8 to 24 episodes. So you can't have one person work on all of those.
Yeah.
But if you want the style consistent, generally, from what I've seen, they'll rotate episodes. So you'll have one storyboard artist doing half of them and the other doing the other half. And it keeps the style consistent. It keeps the shots consistent. It gives
It just kind of keeps people from going and running off into left field.
Yeah.
More than anything,
Yeah.
I would say.
I think
Guessing.
the only show that I've seen that didn't do this that was good was Steven Universe. Then again, I don't remember how many storyboard artists were on Steven Universe, but the style was more loose so that they could tell more stories with different artists, and it was really good. It was more artsy, which was the point, which is why it was good. But then there's other shows that I've seen that had like 11 storyboard artists, and it was not. It's generally a red flag, unless it's like a really big show. I think Arcane had a lot of storyboard artists, but that was a big show, and they had a big budget, so they were able to do that.
So the one that you saw that you said you thought it had 11 artists and it wasn't good. What about it was not good? Like how
did having a multiple storyboard artists make it not good?
Have you guys ever seen not Crunchyroll? High Guardian Spice had, I think, 10 storyboard artists on it. Art was good, but I don't know where to go with this.
well, like, what would you? So me coming in, if I'm watching a show,
Yeah.
that has too many.
Yeah.
There's too many storyboard artists. What am I going to see?
A
That
lot
I'd
of
be like, that's wrong.
a lot of inconsistencies. Sometimes there will be issues with the pacing. I've noticed this is it's more of a studio thing, so I can't judge this on how many storyboard artists there are, but perspective issues will sometimes pop up. That's because usually that's outsourcing. The storyboard artists don't realize that if they're outsourcing, they have to be really, really specific on their storyboards, and they'll just do it loosely. And so when they send it, when they outsource it, they're not paid to fill in your gaps. And that might just be a communication issue in the studio, but it can be a really nice art style, but generally the pacing will feel off. That could also be a writing issue, but it's usually inconsistencies. There's a lot of inconsistencies. But yeah, the reason why they take 2 to 3, usually there's 3 if they have like a lead storyboard artist, and they will supervise the other 2. I could be completely wrong, and then I'm just making a fool of myself. This is I've talked to a few storyboard artists.
We are all about confidence here. Whatever we say on here is right.
Guys,
I'm correct.
I'm not wrong. You can't prove
because we are putting this out in the webiverse.
Yeah.
So it's true.
Yeah. So I want to do storyboarding, but right now the industry is a little chaotic. It's incredibly competitive, and I'd have to move to a place I cannot afford if I'm not doing indie. So I'd love to do indie, but I'd also have to have a side job right now, and I'm currently trying to apply for a master's in something else.
So have you thought about while you're because you just said like you're working toward your master's right now, while doing that, also training to be a ninja and get really good at shooting darts.
Yeah.
You could reduce the competitiveness really quickly. Just saying.
Yeah.
And like you said, you have tiny little hands
I do have
and you're
tiny
5'2". You could like sneak places
I could get
really
away
easy.
with it, guys.
You could do this.
Yeah.
I just had a conversation at work with a guy today because something came up about Yellowstone.
Oh, sorry, I live next to Yellowstone.
So I saw that. I'm like, I haven't looked into this, but apparently where Yellowstone comes down and there's a little sliver that's like just like a mile wide maybe, that's in Idaho.
Yep.
That little sliver that's in Idaho.
I live right next to that.
If you go to that little sliver in Idaho and you murder somebody right there,
Oh gosh.
you can't be charged with murder.
You should have told me that a year ago.
Because constitutionally, you have a right to be tried by a jury of your peers.
Oh gosh.
And because of jurisdictional issues, that one little sliver of the Yellowstone National Forest that's in Idaho and the way things overlap, nobody lives there. So if you murder somebody right there, apparently, this is the thing that I saw. If you murder somebody right there, you can't be tried by a jury of your peers because there aren't
I
any.
have a better one. I
So I'm
can
like,
make this worse.
Reduce your competitiveness by having a giant creative fest at that little sliver in Idaho.
I can make this worse.
And then you can be like, now I'm the only creative artist.
Idaho has crazy winters. I lived there. That's where I went to college. Crazy. I'm doxing myself already. It's fine, guys.
You were in Idaho.
I was in Idaho. I don't live there anymore, so it's fine. But so I lived right next to it. I'm at like an hour or two out. And if you didn't know this, they have crazy winters in Idaho. So cannibalism is legal if it's dire circumstances.
What's dire?
Trapped out in a national park.
But I mean, like, do they have any specifications?
No.
Or
Not
is
that I'm
it
aware
dire
of.
where it's like,
Not that I'm aware of.
dude, it was Tuesday and I was really hungry, bro, so I had to eat him.
Let me look up.
I mean, what's the... is it a reasonable... maybe, I bet it falls under a reasonable person would
Except
consider
in cases
this
of
dire.
extreme life-threatening conditions. Okay, so a law against it was passed in 1990, but there are exceptions. What is it?
Is it murder and cannibalizing somebody?
Well, how do they
is
know you
okay,
murdered
or
them?
just
If
cannibalizing?
it's extreme if it's extreme conditions and you're stuck out in the snow, they're not.
You don't
gonna
leave
know.
any evidence.
I guess yeah. But, yeah. If you're like, he lasted.
What is this?
He lasted about 6 weeks, something like that.
What? Sorry, I just found out what is this?
What are you looking at over there?
People also asked, what is the mayhem law in Idaho?
What?
Every person who unlawfully and maliciously drives a human being, or what is that? A human being of a member of, what? I can't read. Deprives a human being of a member of their body or disables or disfigures them, cuts off.
If you cut something off somebody,
is guilty. Yeah,
if
you dismember
mayhem.
someone, you're guilty of mayhem.
But what if
We're
you cut
so
them?
off
What if it's a
topic now.
life-threatening situation and you cut it off them
It
to
just
eat
says
it?
extreme circumstances, as far as I can tell.
Would you get charged with mayhem, but not with cannibalism?
What is this?
If you're like,
Any person who lawfully ingests the flesh or blood of a human being is guilty of cannibalism, it shall be an affirmation defense to a violation of the provisions of this section that the action was taken under extreme life-threatening condition as the only apparent means of survival. Cannibalism is punishable by imprisonment in the state if not exceeding 14 years old. That's it. That's the whole law.
So, what if you're backpacking
That
and you get trapped, and then you get caught out in horrible conditions, and you get lost, and then you're trying to make your way back, and you're dragging your buddy, and then you're like, what about their
you're gonna
legs?
starve.
They don't need their legs.
Well, see, the thing here is that it doesn't say
Does that count?
It doesn't say anything about consent here. Is your buddy okay with you eating their legs?
That's what I'm saying. Do you get trapped? What if you're like, the only way for me to survive is for me to eat your legs? I have to get both of us out of here, and I'm dragging you out.
It just says you're guilty of cannibalism. It doesn't specify what you. Okay, cannibalism is
if you just cut
punishment.
their legs off and eat their legs to save your life,
It's just mayhem.
then do you
it's
get charged with
That's why
mayhem?
it's called the mayhem law. Yeah, it's.
So you can't just cut you have to eat all of them.
Do you? I don't.
You can't get
It
charged.
just says ingest flesh or blood.
But the mayhem law is if you cut something off somebody.
So
Well,
maybe
no, this
charged
is
with-
the mayhem law in Idaho.
Well, what was the other one you were reading about?
I don't
Cutting
know.
something off somebody.
That was what Google
Cutting
was
off a
telling me. This is what legislation.idaho.gov is telling me. It says Title 18 Crimes and Punishments, Chapter 50 Mayhem. So that's the mayhem law in Idaho. Hi, I didn't think I'd end up talking about cannibalism today.
Maybe
but
it's because you have to go in with consent. You have to be like, mayhem, I eat you.
oh, ow! I knew that was gonna happen. Sorry, there's a divot in the table. I just smacked my hand on. Anyways,
so
back
talking
to
about
art.
cannibalism
Yeah.
and art.
I talk about cannibalism more than I should. Don't tell anybody.
Just move back to Idaho
That's
and
my secret.
you'll be fine.
Oh, maybe.
So,
Anyways,
if you want to eliminate your competition,
yes.
take them to that little corner right there and mayhem them, and then you can be like, I'm the only one, and I have plenty of beef jerky.
As much as that sounds interesting, I do believe in supporting other artists.
Okay.
So I cannot kill my fellow artists. I don't think I'd be very good at it anyways.
That's why you have to train to be a ninja as part of your masters.
I have arthritis. I don't think I'm getting anywhere.
But you're short, so it's mini arthritis. You'll
No,
be
it's
fine.
like my whole spine because I'm short instead of just a portion.
So,
Become an artist, you'll get arthritis. Guys. No, that's genetics, but you know.
so you studied
Yes.
not ninjas, not
No.
cannibalism. You studied.
Well, I did
you
study cannibalism
art. Okay.
for personal reasons, not for my degree.
What?
but-
This is getting worse.
I know. Look, that's why you guys are like, do you want to talk about your stories? I'm like, no, because 50% of it is about cannibals. It's vampires, guys. Vampires are cannibals. I don't know what to...
Are you gonna sing a song now and be like, I ate a girl's face and I liked it? And
No, I am not going to say what I was going to say. Because that's going to get more off the rails. All right, anyways.
so, you went to
Yes.
school. You didn't cannibalize anybody.
I did not.
At school.
No,
Not
unless they're my characters, but no.
So what we talked about your emphasis was in entertainment,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And we kind of went down this
We
winding.
started talking about webcomics. I
Yes.
don't specialize in webcomics, but I know about them, so I can talk about something else. But
So in the entertainment
Yeah.
that you did,
yes.
was there the first question the first kind of rabbit hole we went down was just like, what area of entertainment?
Yeah, mostly storyboarding. That was right. We were going over budgets. That's what I was talking about. And then we started talking about how many storyboard artists they have, and I was not very. Yeah, that's why it's very competitive because they tend to only have 3 max lead storyboard artists and then a couple revisionists. It's easier to get a job as a revisionist. That's what I'm aiming for, but I don't have the money to move to California right now. So that's if I were to work for like a name brand.
Just go dig a little hole in the
I'm
beach.
gonna blacklist myself by forgetting terms today. But studios.
Mhm.
That's the word I was going for. But if you're to do indie, generally you can do those wherever you want. What?
So what's the, from a revisionist perspective,
Mhm.
is there, I guess one of the questions that I had
Yeah.
was, if you're doing storyboarding, are they physical layouts? Is it mostly digital nowadays? What are you doing when you're doing storyboarding today?
This is why we were talking about budgets. It all depends on the budget. If you have a big budget and you're a bigger studio, generally you can do everything in-house and there's a lot more flexibility. So if you watch like storyboards for SpongeBob, I don't know what they look like today, but if you looked at them in
They're square.
they're
and
on
they have
sticky
square
notes.
pants.
They're on sticky. Well, yeah. I know Adventure Time was often done on sticky notes, and then they transfer that to digital. So they're able to do more with their flexibility. But then other studios with smaller budgets, they have to just do everything in. Oh my gosh, my word. Digitally, yes.
So that's what I was
better
going to say.
at
Is
this
is there a bigger push with modern storytelling, modern storyboarding, modern studio stuff?
You have to do.
Is there a push
digitally.
to be like, it needs to be digital,
It needs to be
more and
digital.
more
I
and
mean,
more
what
digital?
they don't really do paper 2D animation anymore, so it has to be digital. It's always digital.
So how do people take that today of being pushed into the digital world for the, if you're going into art, if you're studying art today, especially I would think in anything entertainment,
Yeah.
how are artists reacting to that?
I think that's more of the standard now. I don't.
Even with it being the standard, is it widely praised, or is it, someone who like I want to use my sketchbook and I want to do these things in a sketchbook and I don't like doing it digitally, but I have to.
Sucks is the answer. If you want to do physical art, storyboarding is good in the beginning. It's good to, I mean, with any art you do, you're going to want to do traditional art. It's how you keep up your skills. It's how you go,
It's the same way with bow staff skills.
Yeah.
Fighting
skills.
skills.
So it's the same thing with
skills.
writing. Same thing with exercise. Like, you're not going to stop walking, are you? Same thing with traditional. You're not going to stop sketching in physical. And if you do, stop sketching in physical. Stop. Get a sketchbook, please. I beg you. So, but if you don't like digital, your options are going to be limited if you want to do entertainment.
Well, my thought was more broadly speaking, even though it is the standard.
Yeah.
Are people that are now working in digital media, even if they've come up and been trained in digital media, is the preference to say, oh no, I really like digital media, or is it, nope, I have to do digital media, but I prefer, is there any kind of leaning one way or another from a preference perspective?
I'd say most people prefer digital, but that's also because I'm surrounded by digital. I am a fine arts degree, so I've had a mixture of both, physical and digital, but I'm not to the level of fine arts where I was doing physical every day, where that's what I preferred. So most of the people I'm surrounded with like digital. I think it's just, if you know what you want to do, you kind of know which one you're going to pick. but then again, you also have my professor. He he worked on like the Prince of Egypt. And he also worked on Sinbad and El Dorado, and all of his he did the backgrounds or some of them. And he did them, as far as I know, traditionally. They did them traditionally, and then they'd scan them in. It really depends on the studio, the project, but I'd say most things now are digital, just because it's faster.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's something that's taking over the industry, not only because it's faster and cheaper, but because it's what the up and coming people have been trained on more? You know, it's kind of what you grew up with kind of thing.
These are good questions that I don't know if I have the answers for. I might be too young to have an answer for that. Because we'd have art seminars where people would come in and they did mostly physical work, but I didn't really focus on those, so I didn't really talk to them. I wasn't networking with those people because I wasn't going into gallery art. I wasn't going into photography, which was also digital. But I wasn't. I wasn't. I only took a few painting classes. I loved them, but it was also to. I do digital work. You can't. You need a foundation in traditional art before you really start to understand digital, and or you're just lucky and you understand digital art and you don't never need to touch a pencil in your life.
Yeah.
But for most people, having a foundation in traditional art is good. But yeah, so I don't know if I have an answer for that question, mostly because if there was complaints about it, I imagine there was. I mean, you always hear people be like, "Oh, that's not real art. The cartoons aren't real art because you're not painting. It doesn't look real. It doesn't look like a photograph." I'm like, okay, but I'm also 23. I was born in 2002. Like The Lion King was made before I was born, so and I know a lot of that was traditional.
So I think you've answered the question.
Yeah, it's largely become digital. I'd say yes.
You grew up in digital, and
Yeah.
that's what you know. And
And I'd say most of the fine artists we met were older. They were older. I think I met one who was younger and he still had kids. So, but that's the people they would invite in for our seminars. So if I know there are younger fine artists, but I mean it's just as competitive. So, but I want to get into more gallery knowledge and field work, but that would be more of like if I were to like museum curators and gallery artists and the people who explain the art to you that I don't. I'm losing my mind.
that's kind of where you're shifting.
Yeah, that's where I'm starting to go. Mostly because it's expensive to be an artist, but also, I mean, it's really competitive, and I don't have the health to compete. I think I'd die like a rabbit in shock.
Well, yeah, we've been to a couple cons, and the Tremendicon that we were at last year, we had the table right next to us. Like we shared a table with a guy who did comics. And while we were there, he did like multiple just hand sketch, which was really cool. Did like, here's this comic scene, but with this hero doing whatever. And he would like sign and sell individual copies of stuff. And I'm like, once that's gone, it's gone.
Yep.
And he has a comic page as well, a web comic page. You could go read his but he had all of them in printed format also.
Yeah.
But I'm like, anything he did right there, and then give that away, like that's gone.
Yeah.
It's now out there. There's one copy in existence. It's gone.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of us was a girl who did like it made me think of Adventure Time, but Adventure Time on crack.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I mean, it was.
Were they drawing their own stuff, or were they drawing someone else's stuff?
It was all her own stuff. I mean, it was really good. It was fun. It was
Well, I
fun,
was just
entertaining
wondering
stuff.
if I knew if it was a property I knew, but
Yeah, she made her own like merch to go with it and everything. Had big paintings, little paintings, but like I'm sitting there, and immediately to my left is this great big canvas that was, probably 3 feet by 2.5 feet.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And it was like Where's Waldo, but with Adventure Time characters, like just the whole thing, an entire scene. And she was selling that painting was like $450, something like that. And to look at that, you're like, oh, it's this cartoon thing. Why is it $450? And it's like, well, we talked to her a little bit. That painting took her like 180 hours to make. Like that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time to be there with a brush, paint on canvas.
Yeah.
180 hours to make this. Like, holy crap. Like, yep. Nobody should pay you less than $450 for this. Totally get it. But I don't think people realize.
Yeah, art takes a long time.
So transferring over to the digital world, does it take the same amount of time?
Depends on the artist. I work really quickly, but that's also because I don't render my art. I don't like rendering my art. That's why I've gone into storyboarding. It's rendering in a different way. Most storyboards, I mean, they're called storyboards. They're the skeleton. They're the foundation of what's going on. So I can do those depending on the project, either really quickly or a little slowly, depending on how many revisions I need to do, depending on how big the project is, depending on how complicated the style is. Because it's in storyboarding, you have to mimic other styles. Most of the time, you're not storyboarding in your own style. I'd say actually
you're storyboarding to whatever the project is.
You're storyboarding other properties' styles. So you have one of my professors, he got hired almost immediately because he figured out the style incredibly fast. And just did it within like an hour. But then he was with a couple of other people, and I think they were given like, I could be dead wrong. I know they were given at least a few days, if not 2 weeks, to figure out the style, and they had to come back. But he figured it out within an hour, so he was hired immediately. Because that's what they needed. They needed it fast, and they needed it accurate, and you had to learn it. But then you have people who do the backgrounds. And if they have a ton of experience doing backgrounds, I mean, you could take them anywhere. Revisions are honestly what takes the longest.
Yeah.
So if you do something within an hour and you like it, that's great. If you're working for a company, and you send it to them, you're most likely going to have to do revisions, which takes longer.
So
we don't know anything about revisions taking longer.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just about any creative work. Unless you're like a god and you've been doing things for a long time, you will always have revisions, and you should always put it in your schedule. That's one of the number one things. So in my portfolio classes, we had to come up with our own schedules because it was a professional class. You'd have to make your own projects like it was in a studio. And most of the people who would just get into those classes, I took it every semester. I like a madman. But most people only take it twice. When they'd first come in, they wouldn't know that they'd have to make their own schedule. And they would never budget in time for revisions. So when we do the first week of school, or first 2 weeks, you'd come up with your project and you'd pitch it to the class. And then you'd get feedback from your classmates, and generally the number one thing that we saw was you need to put in some time for revisions, because they would never think about that. So when you are that's probably one of the number one things when you go into the industry is you will get criticism, and it will not always be pretty, especially when you're working for someone else. But that's just you get good at revisions eventually.
So what is the, like with us on the writing side, revising is like cleaning up language, eliminate, deleting parts that don't move the story along, changing, rearranging chapters so that pacing and flow are better and the story is better told, you know, and then from there it's like, okay, well now I have all these ripples that I have to read through and find all the details out of my, 200,000 words to correct. What does that look like in the storyboarding world?
Right. So I've only ever done revisions with a professional storyboard artist once. It's kind of similar to how you would do a manuscript editing, but instead of a lot of writing, that's usually a lot of like drawing.
But what would you be doing? You create a storyboard for this episode that is going to go out, and you're like, all right, I got the storyboard done. Here's what I want, and then you're like, okay, the revisionist comes in and is like, okay, let me look at this, and what happens?
No, at least this is for me, and a couple of other artists that did storyboards as well. Pacing was one of the number ones, and shot composition. So, like what's going on the screen. So pacing was like, oh, this shot is too short. You extend the shot a little bit longer because, say like it was a. Do you guys know what a wide shot is?
A wide shot, wide angle shot.
Yeah. So, say they're like, oh, the wide shot wasn't long enough. We want to process where the characters are, make it a few seconds longer. Or if a character was like talking, you would go, oh, that pacing, oh, my words are failing me. It's like I'm rebooting, guys. I'm sorry.
That's the Matrix. It's the Matrix.
If two characters were talking, generally.
So you have Jake and Finn.
Yes.
Coming on, you're storyboarding an episode. Jake is telling Finn that the Ice King, we got to go get him and save the princess. And I need you to turn your butt into a giant floaty raft so I can sit on it. We can go across this. We can make it across this lake. Yeah. That's one of the scenes you're fixing here.
Some of the pacing would be like how quickly his butt turns into a float. I'd say about I have repeated the same thing 3 times. I'm so sorry. In most studios, most projects, they will always record the audio first. That's like standard. So I think from what I've worked with, storyboard artists have had the dialogue to work with because that's the skeleton. It goes with it. It helps with the pacing. So sometimes they have leeway to pick how far away 2 lines of dialogue will be. But say like, this isn't really a problem that I've had with dialogue, mostly because I didn't work with a lot of dialogue. Guys, if you're going into storyboarding, learn how to storyboard dialogue, please. Most things don't have the budgets to be super action-y.
What do you mean by storyboard dialogue?
Yeah, so I keep wanting to talk about budget because that's like the biggest thing with storyboarding.
Just pretend budget's not an issue.
Budget is not an issue.
I mean, ideally, you're gonna if you were gonna storyboard dialogue.
Yeah, well, the budget is the biggest thing with dialogue. Most people will have a lot of dialogue because they have a short budget. They don't have, so compare it to something like Bluey versus Arcane. Bluey has a smaller budget than Arcane, as far as I'm aware. So a lot of their stuff has more dialogue. They're talking more. They're generally in one shot. There's a bit more action in Bluey because there's 2 kids running around. But you will notice that the smaller a budget, the more people are standing around and talking, because they don't have the budget to constantly move things around or cut the camera or do different shots. The bigger the budget you have, the more ability you have to have those shots, the action shots that take forever to animate. And you can do whatever you want with your dialogue. But
So
yeah.
by when you say be able to storyboard
Yeah, be able to.
dialogue,
Most studios you will, if you get hired and you go into the, I mean, even if you're doing your own project and you're budgeting on your own money, most studios do not have the budget to do something crazy like Arcane. I studied Arcane storyboards a lot in the beginning because that's what I wanted to do, but Arcane is like a phenomenon. It is an enigma. It has a huge budget because it's by League of Legends. So they had a lot of leeway to do whatever they wanted, as far as I'm aware. So they got to do a lot of different action. They got to put a ton of details in. But most studios will not have that. And as I learned storyboarding, I learned if I'm going into a studio, I'm probably not going to work on something as crazy as Arcane. I will be working on things like Bluey or My Little Pony, or I think My Little Pony transitioned to 3D recently. But same thing. Any cartoons that you work on that aren't crazy adult budgets are going to have a lot of dialogue. So you need to learn how to storyboard that, or you're probably not going to be hired, because.
But again, by storyboarding dialogue, it's the
ability to make
the characters have whatever, they're having a conversation on the screen, the dialogue is happening,
you need to
and
make
your
it,
job is to bring whatever dialogue's happening, you need to bring it to life as efficiently as possible.
Yes. You need to make sure it's interesting, because nobody wants to watch two people just sit there, unless you're listening to a podcast. Hello. So you need to make the conversation interesting enough within the budget. So I think Bluey has some really good examples.
So
I don't know why I'm thinking of Bluey so much today.
So like wide shot with two people, then maybe a short or a close shot with one person, and then do it to the other person, and then wide shot again,
and then
stuff like that.
Hand motions, what's going on in the background? Are they walking around while they talk? Is there a prop that's it? Prop? Hello? A prop that's important. Like how the two characters interact with each other is a big one. I remember storyboarding. This is when I got professional feedback on. I was jumping around a lot because I was thinking of a bigger budget, and they're like, you need to cut this down significantly. So instead of the characters, they were kind of like fighting a little. So instead of them going back and forth and pacing on, and the character just got in their face, and the camera zoomed in on them, and then it cut to his face like really close. But it was small enough to where it wasn't jumping all over the place, but just enough motion and enough intrigue to be within budget.
So there's two scenarios I'm thinking of as you're talking through that. The one that you were storyboarding, that you were talking about just now, where it was jumping around too much and whatnot. That's a story that you were storyboarding your story from scratch, right? You came up with the story. You came up with the storyboard for it and developed everything for it.
Yeah.
The alternate scenario is there's somebody else who has, here's the, we've got the dialogue, we've got the script written out, we've refined the script, and here's the pacing with our dialogue and just some comments about what the characters are going to do. And now it's your job to storyboard that, including manipulating the characters and whatever's happening on scene around an existing script. So I would assume when you get into you want to know how to tell a story on your own.
Yes.
But from a focus perspective and going in, like looking for a career at a studio somewhere, if you want to be a storyboarder, you're going to be I'm not writing the script. I'm not writing what's happening
Yeah.
in the story. I'm doing the storyboarding scene by scene
Mm-hmm.
to go along with somebody else's, the writer's written script
Yeah. So,
and already recorded dialogue.
yeah. Was there a question behind that, or was that
Just that's is that am I getting that right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. One of the biggest things I had to learn as well was studios don't really want to see what you can do with your own characters. They want to see what you can do with their characters, or an existing property. So, like, in a lot of, I mean, obviously they want to see what you can do with your stuff. That's where creativity comes from. But in a lot of portfolios, you'll see a combination of their own projects and say what is it called? Public domain, and they will take a story from public domain and they will make it their own.
Like Mickey Mouse and Winnie the Pooh. No. Right?
Technically, if we want to, yeah, I guess. No.
Yeah, they're public domain.
I know
now.
Winnie.
You can now use Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse for stuff. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no. But yeah, so they will take public domain and they will take that project and put their own spin on it. And companies, as far as I'm aware, love to see that. They love to see what you can do with existing property and make it come to life. Because, I mean, if you're storyboarding and you're one of the lead storyboard artists, you need to be attached to those characters. You need to like what you're doing. I mean, I hope you like what you're doing.
We know a show that they don't like what they're doing,
What
that they
show?
don't like the characters.
We do.
What show?
I'm not sure.
From a book, from some books that we like.
I know what you're talking about. I didn't watch it, but I heard Dad complaining about it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to have a whole episode of just that sometime.
Yeah. Generally, I hope if you're a storyboard artist and you're working on someone else's property, you enjoy what you're doing. Because the more you enjoy the stories that you're working on and the characters that you're working with, the easier it is to make them to come to life.
Mm-hmm.
I remember studying Big City Greens. That was fun. That was fantastic. I loved that. And that was just like reverse storyboarding and getting to know the characters and how they storyboarded them. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
You need to get good at fan fiction, essentially.
Kind of. I mean, well, yes and no. Fan fiction is.
I mean, your own, like you said, studios want to know what can you do with our characters, which is essentially fan fiction.
I guess.
I love this, so I want to see what this character do. Blah blah blah, whatever. So
there's a word for it. What's the word? Adaptation. I think the word you're going for is adaptation. Is that the word?
The word fits. I don't know if it's the one you're looking for.
When you take an existing property and you make it your own, that's adaptation, I think. You're adapting the story to your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fan fiction is more like.
Well, so adaptation, I would see, and maybe it's a game of semantics, but I would think adaptation is taking something, so like taking a book and then putting it into movie form in your interpretation of it. You're adapting it to a different.
Same thing with if I were to draw
medium.
Peter Pan in a different style and make it my own story. That's adaptation of Peter Pan.
Yeah, but I'm saying like keep it in their style and take Peter Pan and then you tell a different story. You do something in their style with their characters, but your story.
I mean, it's not
with
fan
your
fiction if
thing.
it's official.
Well, once it becomes official, I'm just saying.
Well, then again, that would make all writing fan fiction. If you're on a writer's team, does that make it fan fiction? Because you're writing the characters that belong to the company. No.
Well, no, because you're part of that's the.
Yeah, well, if you're the storyboard artist, it's the same thing.
No, I'm saying like you said, find something that you really like, and then your portfolio is, hey, I can take. Here's all this Rick and Morty stuff that I did. That's
what we call adaptation. Rick and Morty. Sorry. I don't even know. I've only said I'm not a fan. It's all right. It's just not my thing. You just like reset my brain.
And pajama pants and a t-shirt and
you have a
D&D
Portal
game.
I like
Portal
Portal
game.
Wait,
Portal Gun.
Portal is in Portal from Rick and Morty.
Portal Gun.
Okay, Portal's a game. Thank you very much. One of my favorite games. Portal Gun refers to
I have a Rick and
Portal
Morty
Gun
mug.
from Portal. Rick and Morty, it's just not my kind of show. It's fine. I don't have any gripes with it. It's not my thing.
It's my thing.
They've got some interesting colors. I love colors. Should have got me talking about color. I feel like I'm gonna walk away from this and I like storyboarding, but I also am lacking confidence. I don't know. It's one of those things where I know a lot about it. What was that sentence? I know a lot about storyboarding and I've done a lot of work for it, but I've also never worked for a studio. So all the things that I'm saying could be dead wrong. I'm just
No, remember, this is all true. 100%.
I want a job in the future. If any storyboard artist is watching or listening to this, I'm trying my best.
So speaking of your best and you and
yeah.
do you have anything out there now, and is there any way people can find you?
Do I want to promote it? Here's the real question.
You don't have to.
There'll be like tens of people that will hear about it.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I mean, you can just Google my name. Anja, by the way. Anja, love lady. I have stuff up there with my name, so
Okay.
if you want to find me professionally, that's how you find me professionally. Personally, you get to dig through all of that. Good luck. I don't want you to see my Baldur's Gate fan art right now. I'm a little feral, a little bit on accident. Not on accident, it's completely on purpose, but
You don't have a website or a Patreon or anything like that or that people can directly go to or look for, or they just Google Anja Lovelady.
I do have all of those
whatever they find.
things, but I don't want them attached to my personal name right now.
Okay, so it's under you have those things.
If
under
you know,
pseudonyms.
you know. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
No, and it's it's like one of those things where you just draw the most feral thing possible, and then people are like, "Let's show me your personal art." I'm like, I don't think you want to see that. It's not. I mean, it's not like inappropriate or bad. It's just like, it's like showing fan fiction, but it's my art, and I'm.
Is it George McFly where you're like, what if they don't like it?
No, it's more of like going to your relatives who don't really know what you like personally, and they're like, "Oh, you're probably into something wholesome and sweet." I'm like, "No, but it's not the way you think it is. It's just like I will be judged, and I'm not gonna do that right now." Now, if I'm talking with my friends or something, yeah, you can look at my feral art, but I was going somewhere with that, and then that's been all of today. I don't know why I keep saying that. I'm spacey. Anyways.
That's okay.
You know, so, I am confident in my work. Probably not attached to my full name right now.
No problem.
Because it's just Baldur's Gate fan art.
But regardless, going through like pursuing that artistic field, pursuit of entertainment.
Yeah.
A good experience overall for you so far?
Yeah. I have no regrets in going and pursuing in the entertainment industry. I got tongue-tied there for a second. I have no regrets in...
regrets? You're gonna tattoo no regrets.
Maybe. For the bit, I will. No. Yeah. I have no regrets in going in... Because I know the industry is really crazy right now. And it's really scary for a lot of artists that want to go into it. Like... That's why I'm getting a master's degree in something else. I'm going into library science. I'm going to try to get into museum work. Mostly because because the industry is really competitive, and unfortunately, I don't have the luxury with my physical health right now, which will make my mental health worse. And I'm not financially stable enough to take the risks to move to somewhere like New York or California to maybe get into a studio. Indie work for me, this is my personal experience. I'd most likely go into indie work just because I am not able to go into a lot of the industry that I wanted to a few years ago, because a few years ago I was healthier. But I mean, there's also things like the writer's strikes that happened. There's animators aren't being paid a living wage. Storyboard is really competitive. Like I said, they generally only have maybe 3 to 5, hopefully, depending on how big the project is. I'm not going to judge a project on if they have 10 or 5 unless there's like 8 episodes and 10 storyboard artists. Then I'm judging you. But like, pursue what you want to pursue if that's what you want to do. Because I remember being in my I was in one of my illustration classes, and it's illustration. We were doing illustration, and I had to render a bunch of stuff, and it was fun in the moment, but I was also really stressed. Like, is this what I'm gonna do? I didn't want to do publishing. I hated it. It was fun making the art. There's a ton of technical stuff, like budgeting and working with agencies and how much you're going to make on a contract and royalties, and all of that was really stressful. Storyboarding and working for a studio with animation was more up my alley. When it came to the technical stuff, like when you become an adult and you got to pay your bills, you got to do your taxes, and you got to work with other people. I was really stressed because a lot of the classes were publishing classes because it's illustration. But I mean, I quickly figured out there are other things that you can do. Art is there are so many different art jobs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, I just really like storyboarding. It's incredibly competitive, but you could do things like prop work. This is more of a writing thing. There are people who write the books in Skyrim. There are people who write the books in Baldur's Gate. They're like the little flavor text. You could get a job doing that. That sounds fantastic. Yeah. Like, small things that you don't realize have jobs. You could be a continuity person. Like, you just watch and look and circle things and make sure that everything's consistent shot to shot. Like, there are small jobs. And if you're good at it, you will enjoy the heck out of it. It's fantastic. So, I don't remember what the original question was, but the moral of the story is you're not as limited as you think you are. You will get tunnel vision and think you have to do that big thing. I have to be an illustrator. I have to be a publisher. I have to be the storyboard artist, or I have to be the lead animator. You don't have to be all those things. You can be more specialized. Like, there are people who just solely animate a tail on a character.
Yeah.
You can be that person, and it's good. It's fun. So don't be afraid to explore, and don't be afraid to specialize. Just don't get tunnel visioned into the thing that you think you have to do. Like, I remember crying over thinking I was doing a character design project. I love character design. Again, I hate rendering. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do this project where I have to render the characters. And I remember crying halfway through because I was like, I'm going to hate this as a job. And then I remembered, ding dong, you're not doing that as a job. You want a storyboard. So, I mean, if I could get a character design job, I'd love that. It was more of like, it was a indie game character stuff, so it was like sprite work and rendering sprites and backgrounds, and I was like, I can't do all of this is gonna stress me out. It's like, but there are character designers who just do the like 40 designs you throw out there, and then they send those designs to someone else who specializes them. So I could be the person who does all the sketches and send them to someone else. You could be the person that they send stuff to, and you could be the person who revises them. You could be the person that solely designs the clothes. There are clothing designers for characters, prop designers. We need them. So yeah. Do whatever you want is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, the one good thing with the artistry world, it varies. Like I work in engineering. I have a friend who that we went to engineering school together, and he worked for a defense contractor and worked on a jet that was coming out, and he spent 2 years working on this jet project. And when it came out, I talked to him, and he was like, "Yep, it was." He couldn't tell anybody about it or anything because it was all hush hush and everything because new jet design. And then I talked to him about what he did. His job for 2 years, he designed. It was either 8x8 or 10x10 panel, and that was it for 2 years. An 8x8, or whatever that little panel is.
Yep.
And they would come together and look at all the pieces. Then he would go back and have to do material analysis and everything. And like, he didn't get the picture of the whole thing at all. He just knew his little section and how it had to integrate. And it would revise and revise and revise. And literally his portion of the project that took him 2 years was the one little panel on that.
But somebody had to design
Yeah,
it.
Somebody had to design it. But I work in engineering today, and sometimes I'm like, I think I'm a good engineer. Like I can hammer through all the things. Like I like knowing how to do engineering, kind of like knowing how to do the art stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think I should have picked a different career path though.
I don't know. I love color theory. Hate rendering. It's a sad tale for me. I love color. I never work with it. But you could be what are they? There's like color managers. Oh no, I forgot what they're called. I'm so sorry.
Well, that's why
they specifically pick colors like mood lighting and
the
stuff.
end of a movie or even the end of an episode. You're like,
yeah.
How did it take, 97 people that are more than that even that are all listed in the credits.
Buy some art books. They're crazy and they're good, but it also shows just how much work people put into it. I don't have as many art books as I'd like. I think I have 2, but it really puts in perspective just how much work goes into it. There's a reason why things take up to, and then again, studios got to get these things out quickly. If you're working by yourself, it can take years. If you're working with a studio,
if it's just you and your buddy who work full time, and they can take years, Jared.
Yes,
years.
it can take years.
So, as long as me years. But studios got to get it out faster, so they got to have more people. Like, there's a reason why movies take sometimes 4 to 7 years to come out. 7 years is pretty long now, but
yeah,
it's generally 4. 4 is generally the standard now. But studios want to get them out, so they got to hire more people. Do they pay them? Sometimes. That's why I'm doing something else right now. But
yeah.
that's just the economy. Every job's like that now, unfortunately. Most jobs. Sometimes you get lucky. I'm not in that position right now. I just graduated, so that's... I'm being dramatic, is what I'm trying to say.
Doesn't that go with the territory?
Yes.
So
it's my favorite thing. I love being dramatic. And then people were like, why I'm like, I didn't mean anything I just said. I'm being dramatic because I'm stressed. Let me...
I'm just storyboarding, okay?
Look. Oh, okay. I know how much time we're going over?
Yeah, we're okay.
My favorite compliment that I've ever gotten my storyboards was, I love your facial expressions. Storyboards are like either incredibly detailed because you're sending it off to another studio, or they're like a face. But having people be like, I love the motion that you do. I love the faces because I can really read it. It's such a good... It makes me cry, actually. I'm bragging a little bit, but...
That's all right.
Yeah. Being dramatic is my whole thing. I work with a lot of characters. I love sequencing action. Oh, I want to say this before I forget because I've been trying to say it for the last hour.
Wait, let me throw out something else.
No. Budgets. This was with. Okay. It's not necessarily.
Jared, he wants to say something about budgets.
It's not necessarily. Look, I've had to learn a lot about budgets. Okay, because it really, really impacts the project you work on. But this one's more about the storyboarders. You were like, why do they have 2 to 3? Some people only storyboard the action, and they give them the episodes with the most action, and that's why sometimes you'll see 2 names on there, and then one person does the dialogue, and then you have like the lead storyboard artist to make sure that they all look good, and then the revisionists go in and fix shots that need more detail or something. But I love action sequences. I love that there's not a lot of action sequence jobs for me, unfortunately. So do dialogue, guys. It will pay your bills.
So I wonder if I knew some people that worked on Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
And Kung Fu, the first Kung Fu, what was that? When did that come out? Early?
A long time
It was
A while ago.
like
I was a
digital.
kid.
Digital wasn't really huge. You know, it was. We hadn't turned that page completely yet. So this person, they were like excited that they had worked. They're like, they actually worked on the Kung Fu Panda movie. Their contribution was they did pose right foot.
Yeah.
That was it. It's kind of like the, that panel in the jet.
It's exciting.
They're like, pose right foot was theirs.
Like, a lot of people are like, that doesn't sound like a lot. I'm like, it is.
Yeah.
Try being an artist for 2 seconds, especially with 3D work. I am not specialized in 3D. I've done it. I've had to do it, obviously, but they have a whole technical skill level that I can't even. I'm talking about. Okay, hi. I was talking about storyboarding, mostly 2D projects. If you were a 3D animator, some of it translates, not all of it. Most of it, maybe. Not live action. I've only done that once. Don't take my. It's completely different for live action. But I completely didn't even process that you could storyboard for live action until like my first year of college. I was like, oh yeah, someone has to put that down on paper. How do they know where Iron Man's gonna go?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the entire music video for Take On Me
Yeah,
is just a storyboard.
it's rotoscope. It's rotoscope. Do you know what rotoscope is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. For the audience who doesn't know what rotoscope is, it's when you draw over film or any other reference. Mostly live action reference, I hope.
And then they did the same thing with Family Guy, with Chris, where he gets pulled in through the milk section at the at the grocery store.
Yeah, there's a lot more rotoscoping than you think. But oh, you could get a job just being a reference person. You go to the studio and you like throw foam at each other, or just like pretend to be a cow, and that could be your job. You could be a reference person for most animators do it themselves, but that's fun. That's silly. You could do that. You could be the
gotta see
motion
what
capture
stuff
dude.
is doing.
You could be the actor in the motion capture suit for your favorite video games. I don't know how you can get hired for that, but you can.
Be really
I
good
went
at
to one of
falling
those
down
studios.
and jumping.
I went to a studio where they did that. It was I think it was just at KU now that I think about it. Kansas University. I could be wrong, but that's where I remember it being, so that's where I'm saying it is. I got to watch the professors and students test that out, their motion capture. That was fun.
I got to do. I mean, it wasn't for animation, but for VR machine testing, where we design your machine, and then it gets fully assembled in 3D.
Yeah.
And virtual reality, and then everybody has VR headsets on, and then you have VR gloves, and you got to test, can I actually reach into this machine and work on it? Mm-hmm. And so it's picking
Wait,
up all your
engineers
motion.
care about that?
No. You have the engineering department, you have the manufacturing department, and you have the marketing department, and tied to the marketing department is the service department. And the service guys that are part of marketing that have to be able to go sell whatever that thing is, they really care about that. So we put on the VR stuff, and you get to be like, oh, I got the gloves on, and I got this helmet on, and I got all these things on, all the sensors on, and then you get to see yourself in the little virtual.
Yeah.
Of course, it looks like the people look like they're in Minecraft people that
Yeah.
are moving the things, but the machine is all there that you just designed.
I don't even remember what I was in an animation program in high school. It was for 4 years. We went on a field trip to a studio within in Kansas City, and they did 3D backgrounds for, I believe, Archer. It was a studio that, so what they would do is they would create the 3D background in, I think they worked in Maya. I'm not sure about that. It's been like half a decade. Don't exactly listen. But this is kind of what opened my eyes to just how much work goes into stuff. And I was like 16. They would do the backgrounds, and they would take screenshots, or I don't think they did full render. It was just either they'd take there is a kind of screen capture that you can do. It's not like I just took a screenshot on my computer. They took a screen capture through the program of the don't sue me if I'm wrong, guys. I'm sorry. They would send those shots to the studio, and the studio would paint over it. And I love being on the internet, because there are some artists who are like really elitist about references for some reason. I'm like, that's how you learn how to do stuff, guys. But a lot of people think that if you trace over a 3D model that you made, that it's like not art. I'm like, guys, you will be doing that in your profession. There's a thing called tweening, and it's in betweening. We just call it tweening.
I thought that was like an 11-year-old.
Well, there's that too, but no. Tweening is the action in betweening. So in animation, say you have one person at point A, and then in the next shot they're at point B.
Yeah.
Tweening is to get to A to B.
Well, it's like they have the videos of showing Disney animators with
Yeah.
paper, and they've got pages,
And
and they're like flip,
flipping
flip,
through
flip,
it.
flip, flip, flip,
Yeah.
flip, flip, and they're making one little mark at a time
That's
to show Mickey Mouse's hand is here, and then it's here.
That's in betweening, and a lot of programs now will do that for you. It's puppeting, and within the animation community, again, this is when I was a teenager, so I guarantee most of these kids were teenagers as well. But they were like, tweening isn't real animation. I'm like, every cartoon that you love uses tweening. You are going to go into animation school, and it will be one of the first things you learn how to do. You don't know what you're talking about. And this was when I was in high school, and I was learning to tween, because again, I was in an animation program. It was one of the first things we learned how to do. And like, I don't know why I got really passionate there, guys. I was talking about, right, specific jobs. The elitist people, right?
Yeah, people who say tweening, they're
Tweening,
elitist. And
tweening, I'm like, if you prefer hand-to-hand animation, hand-to-hand, what am I talking about?
I thought that was combat.
Hand-drawn animation. If you prefer...
See? That's how you take out your competition.
Frame by frame.
That's why you gotta go become a ninja.
I combine two terms. If you enjoy hand-drawn frame by frame, that's your preference. You're free to that preference. A ton of movies most of the 2D movies that we love do that. But going back to the studio that I visited, it kind of opened my eyes to, like, you might just be the person that does the layout, and you send the layout to someone who paints over it, or they'll come back to you and go, oh, we just need it a little bit above because the person's taller, and you take another shot of that, and then they paint the backgrounds for it. But references are important. I got so off topic. There's a lot that you can do. But yeah, that was an eye-opener when I was a kid. The studio largely did medical animations. They if you work in 3D, a lot of your jobs might be surgery animations to show, because people don't want to look at gore.
Yeah.
So if they go, I want to know how my surgery is going to go. I want to know what you're doing to
Do
my
you
body.
have to look at gore so you can figure out how to
Sometimes.
be like, no, the spleen doesn't actually look like that. Let me show you.
It depends on the studio and it depends on what you're comfortable with. Some people do, some people don't. But you will animate what's going on for the client. That's what they mostly did, but they would also do these backgrounds. So it was really interesting seeing the range of what a studio would do. So they would. I'm totally losing my mind. I'm not used to podcasts, guys. I need to have a schedule next time, like a bullet point of what I need to talk about. I came here thinking I was going to talk about art history. We didn't even go any over the questions that were on the...
Hey, this is a free-for-all. This is a fun place.
Next time, get me talking about art history. It's much more inspiring than me
What are you talking about?
What is it? Floundering around.
We talked about budgets and storyboarding.
I love budgets.
And budgets and doing the web comics and budgets. And
budgets are really important.
And cannibalism and how to budget if you're a cannibal.
Quote me on that.
And places you can murder people without getting charged. This has been an epic episode.
Okay, I just need to preference this. Every time I say I love cannibalism, I've been playing the Dark Urge in Baldur's Gate 3 for the last, 6 months, and it's the only thing on my mind. So, I don't have a hyperfixation on cannibalism. Can I talk?
I taught her better than this, people.
It's one of those days. Also, I haven't been talking for a month straight. I graduated and all my roommates are gone and I've been talking minimally. This is the most I've spoken all month. So if my voice sounds like it's strained, it's because
strained 7-year-old.
There's dust in my throat from how little I've been talking.
So next time we'll get into some art history stuff.
Yes.
We'll get into there was a specific area of art history that we mentioned that you were like, oh yeah, totally this. Prehistoric. Yeah. So next time you come, we will make it a point to talk about prehistoric art history and how they budgeted to be able to make cave paintings.
They don't have a budget. They bartered, most likely.
But maybe they budgeted how many chickens.
Bring me back to times of bartering. It was so much simpler back then. I could be hired as little pet artist for some rich guy. And they'd be like, have you gotten that painting I wanted done? I'd be like, no, but I did something else. And they'd be like, fantastic. Do it again.
Here's some chickens.
Yes. Give me some lemons to prove how prestigious I am and how good I can paint fruit. If you don't know this, lemons were notoriously hard to paint. And so if there was an artist who had a lemon in their painting, it was basically an artist saying, I'm better than you, to all the other artists. So paint a lemon. It's funny.
So depending on which car you have, paint your car.
Yeah.
On another note, cars are really hard to draw. Did you know that? I don't like drawing cars. I've done it once. I will never do it again. I drew tons of motorcycles. What am I talking about?
Hence, it's difficult to draw lemons.
My thesis storyboard had a motorcycle sequence. I drew more sketches of that motorcycle than showed up on screen. It showed up for 2 seconds. The things you do for art, guys.
Yep. And that's the world that we live in. I mean, think of the hours we're putting into trying to make a book. And this podcast.
Yeah.
The hours. Yeah. We talked about it early on. You can do things for fun. You can do it as hobbies on the side. If you want to have any level of seriously doing it, you have to be willing to invest time.
Oh, yeah.
And not an insignificant amount of time.
Yeah. Hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it can be incredibly rewarding. And you can go get whole college degrees on
for fun.
Doing it, or study on your own.
Yeah.
Learn how to do all the different things. Go out, whole purpose of us talking. Go out and do creative things. Go do cool things.
Nope. I'm going to kind of think of a complete thought before I say it out loud.
Dun, 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 dun,
I'm going
dun.
to say, don't be afraid to do things you hate, because it's still a learning experience. And you'll learn how to... Oh, this was... When I graduated, I had to give a little speech to all the underclassmen who were in my class. So I will kind of reiterate what I told them. If you hate a project, find something you love within that stuff that you hate and amplify it. Because you will find, use a brain, you'll become more creative. I mean, you can, yeah, so don't be afraid to not like a project. That's where you learn. What?
That's...
Oh.
Yeah, let your true colors come through. Don't be afraid to let it show.
Yeah.
That's what the song says.
I wasn't even processing that was a song. What did you say?
You were saying amplify it. Even if it's something you don't like, find something you do like, and let it show, and let it come out. And I said, I see your true colors.
Look, you said that, and my brain just went, "Let your freak flag fly," and then my brain shut off. And you're like, "Yeah, I was quoting a song." I was like, "You were talking." I'm tired.
Yeah.
I should have prefaced that I only got 4 hours of sleep last night. That's probably why my word.
I don't know if that makes a difference.
It does for me. It does for me. When most of my communication is through visual images instead of words, it does for me.
Well, we've gone down some interesting pathways today.
And over time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We do what we can.
You guys told me an hour. So an hour and 30 minutes. I'm stealing your time.
We'll be all right.
Yeah, we'll be all right. Well, thanks for joining us today. If you want to find Anja Lovelady, on Google, see what comes up.
It's a scavenger hunt. Look,
Yes.
You gotta keep listening if you want to. I'll eventually reveal it. You gotta keep listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep listening. At some point, we'll get a full reveal, and we'll get the Patreon and all its twisted glory. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely how I would word it. That was not sarcastic. Sorry, I meant that dead serious.
Well, thanks for coming along on this interesting ride with us today. Go check out the murder site in Idaho and see if you can cannibalize somebody, and make sure that you do a budget before you do so.
Also, thank you for having me.
Yep. Thanks for coming along.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, till next time, go in good spirits. Thanks for listening to the Creators Guild podcast. Don't forget to get your copy of A Flight from Shadows, available on Amazon. While you're there, please rate it and give it a review. If you like the Creators Guild, please like and subscribe, and make sure to share it with your friends. Until next time, go in good spirits.